Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me tonight. I think I have everything together. And welcome to the House of the Dragon. Yes, it is me. I am back. I know it's been a few days, but as I told everyone, this is a very impromptu channel over here. Uh, so, as promised, I always bring on guests that I truly respect out here in these streets. And it's going to be fun tonight. And so, as you can see from the title, I do have the infamous Illasophical here. And I will be bringing him up in just a second. But as you know, I am still new to this platform. So, for all you guys watching on the restream, excuse some of this. We do have to get some of our technicalities in order here, but as always, we want to bring you something that you can enjoy. And I think tonight you're going to enjoy that. My guest does not have 16 hours tonight, so if you do have any questions or want to leave something in the chat, definitely do that. But his time is very limited tonight, and I'm so happy he is here. But let me see here. Okay, so we're gonna have. Let me see. We'll do that one, and we'll have that off right now. Okay, so I will be bringing him up right now. Welcome everyone to the Game of Dragons, and as always, we're gonna jump right in. Let me see here. Hello.
What's going on? Peace. How you doing?
Peace. I am doing well. Better now. Very much better now. Welcome. I am so pleased that you could meet me tonight. I know you have very limited time. So, what we're going to do is basically make use of this time. And we're not going to waste time because everyone on that knows me know I can go for hours, like a long time. I think my longest stream was 8 hours on screen, and
Wow.
afterwards there was the after party, like 2 extra hours. Um,
Interesting.
but sometimes that happens. But it's always fun. But on this channel, I do try not to hold my guests. Like 3 hours is, I think, the most I've ever went here. So tonight we will this will be an interview style, as you know, and we will just jump right into the questions. So the first thing I want to do is just say how I heard of you, because I came across you in a way that it was kind of precarious, but I'll tell you how I came across you, and then I want you to kind of tell me how you came to YouTube and things like that. Um, I remember that I used to see videos, maybe about maybe up to a year ago, and they would just randomly be suggested to me. And I remember seeing you on a few panels, and I just remembered how you came across in the conversation, and that's how I remember you. And I see a lot of people. Obviously, it's a lot of people out here on YouTube. But I remembered a lot of what you said was very impactful. And even though I didn't remember everything you said like verbatim, I remembered that experience while watching. Okay, wow, like I kind of learned something at that moment. I could think about it a little bit, right? And most people that know me know I'm a bit of a contrarian. I don't know. Most of my videos on knowledge and relationships, and a few other channels, people just know me as being a debater. Now, mind you, that's not the whole of me, but when I heard you, I tried in the back of my mind to do a mind experiment and to kind of go against what you said to see if I could take a different position. And
Hmm.
I have to admit, you beat me out. He beat me out. And I was like, wow, like he really does have a point. I can't even beat him. And shout out to Mr. Larry. He be debating me all the time. He got 2 to my 0 right now. Shout out to you, Mr. Larry. I do have another debate coming up with Kings and Dreams. I don't know when that's going to be, but if you're watching Kings and Dreams, yes, the dragon will be flying over your town. Okay. He invited me, so we're going to do this one of these days. Impromptu, of course. But I want to know from you, because I always bring people on that I respect. And I definitely respect your intellect. I want to know, how did you come to YouTube and get involved in the way that at least I see you now online? Because I assume, based on what I think is a content creator, I assume that you have multiple different ways you interact both on screen and off screen as a result. But tell me a little bit, just a little bit.
Well, I'm pretty new to this whole arena.
Mhm.
I went viral last year in a street interview, and I was talking to a young lady about relationships. You know, I was coming from a little lounge, little club with my bro. You
Mhm.
know, I had a couple of drinks. You know, I was feeling a little nice. So I was a little more. I guess in the first interview, I was a little more. I want to say, what's the word I could look for? Just a little more candid, to say the
Okay.
least. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? I used a little profanity. You know what I'm saying? A little vulgarity. You know what I'm saying? But it just spurred a moment. And then a young lady came up to me and said, "Oh, what did you say about women?" So um, the content, the guy that shot the video, I didn't think nothing about it. I didn't even want to go. But my man was like, "Oh, it was a camera." He's like, "Yo, talk." I'm like, "Bro, I want to go," because I always had a way with words. I always had a way to um, connect with people from all walks of life since I was a little boy. So it was like, it's not like it's something I turned into. I was just always this way. It just happened to be caught on camera. So he just convinced me to do the interview. I was like, whatever. So I spoke, and spoke to the young lady, and I didn't think nothing of it. So like a couple of weeks later, the guy I think about a month, 2 weeks or a month later, the guy that I did the video with, he uploaded it, and like in a day, it was like 80,000.
Oh
And
wow.
next thing you know, like in a few days, it was like a million. He was like, "Hey man, people really like what you said. Like the video's going crazy." I'm like, "Cool." Next thing you know, it went crazy. You know what I'm saying? So like worldwide altogether, I would say probably like 50, 60 million. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody done sampled me in a rap song. You know, Meek Mill reposted it. Like a lot of big people reached out to me from that one little clip. So
Mhm.
after that, a lot of content creators reached out to me. You know what I'm saying? They started doing reactions to my stuff. Some just reacted and never reached out or responded. But the first person who really responded to me, well, it was two. It was the Whatever Network. And they got a pretty big network, but they all the way in LA. And they was like, "Oh, I need you to fly to LA." And it's like, listen, I'm a 9 to 5 blue collar brother. You know what I'm saying? I can't just get up and go to LA like that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So it just didn't work out. But they was contacting me for a little while, but I don't know. But Trill from Crew Season,
Mhm.
he did a reaction to my video, and I'm looking at the vibe, the chemistry him and his guys had, and the energy they had. I'm like, he probably be a cool dude. I should hit him up, see what happened. And I hit him up, and he was like, "Yo, everybody love it. The brothers want to, they all like it. They all felt it. You know what I mean? We would love you to come on the show."
Mhm.
And they like the first big platform
Yeah.
that actually put me on their show.
Okay.
First he did a reaction to the video and he tagged me in it. Like he wasn't just trying to play me. Like he really gave me like a more of a look because he did the reaction and he tagged me. So
Okay.
I just been getting hit up from a lot of different people ever
Mm.
since. So it just kind of thrusted me into this space. Even though people always say, "Yo, you should do a podcast." I used to do music. I got the name Illa from rapping. I used to rap, and I
Okay.
always
Okay.
was into as you can see, I got my little library right here. Like I like
I
to read.
see.
I like
Right.
I like to read. I'm very, I'm into like metaphysics,
Mhm.
history, cultural things, things that predate the modern time that we in. So cause I feel like trying to figure out from today, you're gonna get lost. So I like to go back to how things came about. I like to deal with the root of things and how things manifested to get a clearer understanding of where we at today. So I always was like this. Even when I was in the hood, I would be with with the goons and all that, talking the same thing I'm talking now. So it's not like it's something I became. I was always this way. I always spoke this in this manner. I always spoke my mind. I always knew how to connect with people from all walks of life. And it just happened that I just went viral for doing it one day. It's just been a lot of platforms and working with people ever since.
Okay. Okay. Well, you know what? That's interesting because I hadn't seen your viral videos. I had only seen videos that honestly online may not have gotten the same level of views. But my thing was, when I see someone that's very authentic, like in this world, you can clearly tell which ones are authentic and which ones aren't. And, you know, obviously you remember those who are authentic, those that are not, and it's just an act online. Obviously, you forget those because they blend in so easy. But that, in a sense, leads me into what had taken place recently that caught my attention, not necessarily because it was you per se, but because of what was said, given my response to, I don't want to say your body of work, but maybe your presentation over time. It took me by surprise. And it was so much so that I said, you know what, I have to have a conversation with him and kind of let him just kind of, as I say, let his wings spread on that conversation, because I really was taken back. And it wasn't simply because of how the conversation went with you and the content creator Anton Daniels on the Lapeef Network. It was the disconnect, the level of disconnect that I noticed, and I said, okay, maybe it's something deeper here. Now, and like I said before, I'll give you my take on that, given what I know of you now. When I seen that exchange, what it seemed like to me is you and Anton came from two different generations. And I don't know how old he is, but I got this sense that you and him came from just two different cultures, two different generations of men. And it was very clear. And I'm 41, so I don't know how old you are, but I'm 41. So I played back in the early 80s, and I just remember certain things that was law, unwritten laws, and things that I'm used to in terms of men that maybe I'm not so used to now. The thing is with that exchange between you and Anton is that without thinking, I was very clear on what you said and why you said it and when you said it. I was very clear on why. And from a respect standpoint, it was nothing to think about. You made a statement. Someone began to create a narrative in terms of, you know, extra conversation on something that was never said, and you interjected one sentence, which is something that never happens to me, by the way. When people interject with me, they pause my entire stream, and this has happened over the last year and a half, and start talking for 5-10 minutes, and then I got to remember everything I was saying. And I wish somebody would just interject one sentence and say, "Oh no," and let me continue on. However, when that happened with you, I was I was like, okay,
Sorry, somebody
we
called me. I'm sorry. Somebody called me.
no, you're fine.
Somebody called me.
No, you're fine. When that happened with you, it was like the reaction was so starch that it told me like this guy does not understand the type of man that he's dealing with. It was very clear he don't understand that. But in my mind, I first questioned, why don't he get it? Like it was so easy for me to understand your perspective in terms of what you were saying and why you said it out of respect. But he just really couldn't get it. And then after thinking about it for maybe like 2 hours, honestly, it had dawned on me that, okay, we got a new generation of men after me. Like anything below 40 years old, 40 and under, is totally new in terms of their interactions online and how people in general seem to think respect goes. Because I understood what you were saying, that if don't speak to me in a way on this apparatus that you wouldn't speak to me in the flesh. And we all know the difference between people that speak in the flesh and people who don't. We know. Um, so, but the fact that he couldn't either understand or he didn't care told me that there was something missing in his understanding of, let's say, the culture of manhood and the difference in age group. Something had recently happened, not on that platform, but on another platform, where there was a European Black woman that had made a statement about, well, she made a flippant statement to African American about him and said, you know, go suck your mother, something like that, right? And this is something that they say in Europe, right, as like a flippant thing. But in America, when you mention someone's mother, that's akin to fighting words, like period. Like when you openly mention that. And when a young lady from America said to her, hey, you might not want to speak that way because we're from a different culture. When you do that, it means something different in our culture. She responded, I don't care about your culture. but then went on to talk about things that are only related to us and our culture, and thus everybody lost attention to her because you obviously don't know the rules, so we can't conversate anymore. I can't listen to you. And I felt that that's kind of what happened here with you, with him, that at some point people started checking out, and then it became a, well, who's man enough to really like put hands on somebody at this point, because obviously the truth of the matter is been skipped or not understood. And I commend you for holding your composure the entire time. Obviously, I'm a woman. I respond differently, but I do commend you for that. I think it was very admirable to hold your composure in that way under the circumstances. As a man, I understand that, because there was things that was said that, at least from my culture in my generation, that would have ended differently if it was in the flesh. But I want to hear from you. Why do you feel there was such a disconnect in such a simple conversation between you and him?
I mean, because pardon my language, but this shit is fake. You know what I'm saying? This it's not hard to buy a camera, get a pretty background, and just say what you want to say. And if you have some type of financial success, if you have access to certain network of prominent people, you can present yourself to be an expert on life. And the problem with this space is people feel like because they're successful in business or successful in real estate, or they might be whatever they're good at, they think that makes them the standard of everything in life. Mm-hmm. Just because you can be a famous NBA player, you might make a lot of money, but that don't mean you know what politics is about. That don't mean you're the expert on relationships. The problem with this era is a lot of people are smart. Like that, like Anton, he's smart. He realized that Black people are easily sold on things, and they buy into imagery. And they know if you can present certain imagery, if you can have certain trinkets, if you can show that you have some financial prominence, they'll listen to you. Our people are that ignorant. So instead of educating them, our people like to take advantage of that. And he's one of those people. You know what I mean? So he knew exactly what he was doing, but he knew I couldn't. I'm on a computer. What can I do? You know, you could say anything to somebody. But he represents a certain buffer class in our community that's been there for a while. You know, now one thing I will say is sometimes I'm not going to put our people in a box and say everybody got to be some gangster hood person, because I don't think I'm a gangster hood person. Am I from the hood? Most definitely. You know what I'm saying? Was I raised in Newark, New Jersey? Most definitely. Did I go through a lot of things? Definitely. Was I known as some wild killer gangster? Nah, I just was somebody that most people in my life respected. You know what I'm saying? I never really had to go out my way to prove anything. I was always accepted, for the most part, for who I am. I was one of those people in my neighborhood that was around the killers and around the wildest people, being myself. When you're from the hood, a lot of times you got to do certain things to be around certain people. You got to perform certain acts. So I would have a lot of jealousy because I didn't have to do that. I was accepted for who I am around people who was wild. So it's like I was always like an anomaly. So a lot of times when you don't come from those environments, or you were shunned by those environments, you have a certain disdain for that type of Black person because they didn't accept you. And I respect that, because that's ignorant on our part as well too, because everybody Black isn't defined by ignorance, gangsterism, street culture. And a lot of times our people try to pigeonhole our culture into just that. So I understand where people like Anton coming from, but I also understand that they can also build a resentment towards people. They could build a resentment towards people that they feel like shunned them when they was younger. Maybe he was picked on or something. Maybe he wasn't considered cool enough. Maybe he wasn't considered hood enough. So now when he got to a place of prominence and a place of wealth, he wants to wave his finger at people that he think is beneath him. And he just represents a certain type of person in our community that's always been there. We've always had this buffer class, that talented 10th percenter mentality that looks down on other people, that always speaks from a perspective of arrogance and defining our people based on what you've acquired. But at the same time, they totally forget how we got to this point. Our people didn't just wake up and become what you see today. This happened throughout years of social engineering. You know what I'm saying? And you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because on one hand, people say, oh, we got to pull ourselves up by our bootstrap. We got to do what we got to do. You can't keep blaming this man or that man. but we did that already. You know, our people pull up their bootstrap 100 years ago. They came
Right.
out of slavery and got it popping. They didn't
Right.
start complaining. They had whips on their back, starting businesses, starting
Right.
organizations, starting universities. It was always about upward mobility. But something happened to our people. If somebody keeps seeing every time I try to unify and every time I try to bring my people together, not only am I ostracized, but I'm murdered. That's going to change the psychology of a people. It's like I remember they did the experiment. Where they said they put a chain on a horse or a donkey's ankle, and they would connect it to something. And they would and the donkey or the horse would realize he can't leave. He'd do it to the point where when they remove the chair that he's connected to, he still won't move. So when I hear people speak down on our people and totally negating what's been happening to us psychologically over the last thousands of years, because this is an ancient conflict. It's not modern. It's an ancient conflict.
Right.
It's really offensive to me. And they try to call people who stand up for their own, they try to call them hoteps. It's really just classism amongst Black people. Yeah. So I represent, I guess, the underclass to him. You know what I'm saying? I guess, you know, but as you can see, I don't really live in the hood. You know what I'm saying? But for some reason, I'm considered dusty and broke because I speak truth to power, and I can still relate to the brother, the everyday brother and sister, because no matter where I go, I'm always going to be that person. You know what I'm saying? My mentality is blue collar life, blue collar mentality, but white collar living. You know what I'm saying? But my mentality is always going to be to the everyday person. You know what I mean? The people that we admire, like the Malcolm X's and Martin Luther Kings and the Marvin Gayes and the Michael Jacksons and the James Brown. What made them special? What made these people special is because they spoke to the everyday Black man and woman.
Yeah.
Today, our people only respect the elite of the elite, but they don't even realize that our people don't even have that type of money. We're dealing with a people that our people only, and I don't mean to go all over the place, but our people only as a group, we only have 2% of the nation's wealth. Of that 2%, 10% of our people have 50% of that. So the other 90% of our people are splitting half of 2%. So how dare you get online and get on these platforms to talk about what our people need and all that? Brother, we're dealing with something way bigger than just some laziness. This is systematic. This is problematic. It's socially engineered. It's propaganda. And it's been going on for thousands, almost hundreds of years towards one group of people. So to totally negate that, to speak down on your people is treasonous at best.
Wow. Well, I'll say this. I totally get where you're coming from, because people want to be able to speak to the everyday person and then turn around and be able to speak to the elite class, because they're everyday people too. Truth be told. But I pick up on a sense of, like you said, like or alluded to, jealousy, in that when you have someone that clearly is being themselves, they're not trying to be this super clean, rich person that is super conservative, that has never done anything wrong and never lived in anything poor, whatever the case may be. When they see people that can float in between worlds, this becomes a point of contention. And, like, one thing I took offense to in that conversation was when he equated physical altercation to being ghetto. Now, I don't know if he's ever seen Parliament before, where all those, up and do people are, where they start fights over less disrespectful conversation. And they be whole rooms full of fighting with people with white wigs on and all sorts of stuff. Did you see, January 6th happen? Like that wasn't the ghetto. That was down at the White House on the lawn. I've seen many fights break out for less disrespect, mind you, amongst the elite class in elite places. And I never equated people feeling disrespected and responding the way they need to respond, whether it's verbal or physical, to being in the ghetto. And I don't like using that word ghetto too loosely, because I know that does not equate to, and let's say, an African American or poor community. That community actually started out within the small hat community. So I don't want to say that too loosely, but in my experience, because I grew up in Baltimore and there's a lot of quote unquote, poor neighborhoods there. I didn't, there were people who did crime that had to do certain other types of crime to maintain that crime. And there were some unruly people. However, at least 50% of people there, and that's a large number, never act like that. Like even in my old neighborhood back in Baltimore, you go there, most of the people there, if they're not homeowners, they seem like homeowners. They're not out in the street running, fighting, yelling, and doing all this other stuff. Yes, the younger people might do that, but to equate someone saying, listen, if you can't respect me, you won't disrespect me but so many times, and actually mean that, that does not mean that they're unruly. That doesn't mean that they're of lower class, because they could be of high class and in the higher classes and still feel that way. That told me that this person is extremely out of touch. And I mean, Anton, I'm like, you're extremely out of touch with what it means to be in a ghetto, what it means to live in a poor circumstance. However, understand the culture of that neighborhood. Meaning, if you're not, as they say, a dog bring a bone, carry a bone, right? That's a saying that we kind of know what that means in terms of don't enter a fight if you ain't ready to enter a fight, because what you're gonna get is a fight. That's what you're gonna do. And most people know, look, don't bring knives to gunfights. Don't start nothing you can't finish. Don't be bringing other people to a fight and then more people come. If it's a one-on-one, let it be a one-on-one, because like we all know the unwritten rules, right? So to equate, well, just fighting to, people being of the underclass, I don't know where he got that from, but he's clearly guessing with that. And I'm not saying he hasn't lived that life, but to me, the fact that I can tell, okay, sir, you clearly don't understand the culture, tells me that there's a gap someplace. And I want to believe that that gap is, psychological and not physical, because if it is physical, that level of trickology, and I'm gonna call it that, is something I'm not used to seeing. Like somebody like him, for instance, who's clearly his online persona is what it is, whether it's real or fake. It is what it is. It gets him his back. Okay, fine. But for me to believe that that's really how you think, like in real life, that means that the level of disconnectedness that you live is something unreal that even I don't know anything about. Like I don't know anything about that level of ignorance. Maybe that's the word I should use. But I was just taken aback by the fact that he didn't understand that level of respect he should have given you in a conversation, and just let it go, because he kept going back to it. And this is the issue that I think the broader conversation that women are having is that you have, like you said, a lot of people that have a camera and they have a little bit of clout, and they want to utilize relationship conversation and female bashing, in a sense, as their main thing that they're into, right, or whatever. And they'll tell females, okay, I'm a male, I'm a leader, I'm telling you, do not solicit the aggression of men, because man to man, we all know that there's an underlining presence of aggression that's always there, man to man. So don't solicit that as a woman. So as a female, I have to respect a man's aggression in a conversation online. However, that same man will turn around and do even, and that's a feminine thing, to get emotional and not respect that, right? For that same man or men to turn around and do worse than that, that tells me that the issue women are having in terms of leadership is a real issue. And this is just an example of it. Meaning, you're telling me not to do something, leading me as a woman, but then I turn around and see you don't understand the thing that you just told me to do. Now, that male aggression that I'm trying to avoid, I can't avoid it because I'm behind you. And now that male aggression is pointed at me through you. So, yeah, no, you're no shield for me. You're the one that's causing the problem. How can you be a shield for me? In a broader context of a conversation, because I've heard that rhetoric from Anton and people like Anton. And I just, it's saddened me to see that. Like, just, and I'm not saying that two men hate words, because that's like, but to see it in that way, so contradictory, I felt in many ways that you was respecting his manhood by not even mentioning it to that degree of what maybe I would say it. As a woman, I would say you are no leader to any woman. I don't care if you're married or not. And people like you that do that are no leaders in this community, which is why the community looks the way it looks. But yet you'll turn around and call it the community, call people ghetto, talk about what we're doing wrong and how you know so much. Meanwhile, you don't even know how to keep your lies up, let alone lead. This is what we're turning into, which is in part why I try to keep my conversations to a specific point about the thing and not go into, let's say, the romance of, the dynamic between black men and black women, because like you said, there's a history there that's very unique that we're still trying to work through. And that history includes the war and the wars overseas, coming back, drug abuse, and then the wars that happened on this soil in terms of the young people in the early 90s. So these are things that still have trickle down effects in our community that we're still trying to work out, like literally politically and physically, especially with police involvement. And for people to act like we don't have a lot on our shoulders within our community, let alone without, again, it does go to show that, yes, Black people do have an issue with where they put their attention and their dollars. I have seen some pretty cringe things happen with Black people on these platforms with putting their money essentially where his mouth is. And I feel like maybe we don't have that kind of money to be throwing at content creators, let alone for that kind of rhetoric. But I guess that leads me to a question for you that, and I had it written down because I definitely wanted to ask you this. In what ways are we, in your opinion, as Black people, African Americans, however, whoever out here want to call what you want to call us, okay, you know what you call us, okay? In what ways are we making the same mistakes that we made in the past again, maybe in a new form now? Because I see we're making progress, but then I see where we're not, and we're slipping back to a worse place than we were before. Yeah. So what say you about that?
I mean, I think the problem is people talk more than they're willing to learn. And we can only understand life from slavery to now. Like, most Black people really think our history started with slavery. Like, when you ask them about the past, they're going to talk about 75, 1956, or 1980, as if that's the past. You deal with other nationalities of people, they are. Sorry, people keep calling me.
No, you're fine.
But when we deal with other nationalities and other cultures, they're always speaking from an ancient perspective. All we talk about is the modern time, as if that's when time started. I'm not religious, but the Bible say a day is 1,000 years to the Lord. That should let you know that time is more expansive than our finite minds can understand. We only understand who we are from 100-year span. But like I said, we deal with other cultures. I mean, because I stayed in DMV for a little while. My daughter lives in Baltimore, so I'm very familiar with that area as well. I was in DC one time, and there was a flyer in Chinatown. Okay. And it said, "Join us for the Festival of Shin Yu, celebrating 5,000 years of culture and history." And I seen that, and I was like, wow, regardless of what technology has come about, regardless of what new terms to define people has come about, these people have continued, or at least remembered and venerated who they were based on 5,000 years. All we understand is the 70s and 80s, and like, as if that's us. That's not who we are. We are way far removed from our culture, but we don't have the mental patience and fortitude to read. We can Google, we can watch little YouTube videos, and we can listen to somebody talk, but we don't internally know. That's why people keep asking. If you go online, people asking the same question they was asking 50 years ago, because they not reading nothing for themselves. Right. They just want to hear somebody tell them something, but they don't have the patience to really learn. And if you're not going to take time out your life to look up, like right now, people say, well, who are we? What are we? Okay. There's a lot of people that said we are a lot of things. Some people might say you're a Hebrew Israelite. Some people might say you're a Moor. Some people might say you this, say you Asiatic, say you Indian, say you indigenous, you Aboriginal. So people are giving you options of who you might be. The burden of proof to see who you are is on you.
Correct.
People are coming through with different trains of thoughts, but what are you doing? Are you rightfully dividing the word of truth, or are you just saying what the crowd do? So we have a high school mentality. We look at what the crowd does. Well, they said that was dumb, so I ain't doing that. But what do you think? What do you know? Do you read? Did you look it up? Or did you go by what somebody said or the experience that person gave you and just threw it all out? People are not studious enough. And that's just the bottom line. Our people do not have the patience to learn. And that's by design as well. We'll learn when it comes to how to get an LLC. We'll learn about how to make some money. We'll go to school to get a degree and a great job. But when it comes to real history, we don't want to do it. And then when somebody comes with that, we'll say, well, my man said that wasn't true. So that I heard. We always go by what we heard, but we don't know nothing. We just a bunch of believers and gossipers, but we don't know anything. So the reason why we're here is because we just are not a studious people. We don't have the patience to really learn how things came about. We keep looking at this thing from a modern time. Anything past slavery is fake. Not saying it's fake like it didn't happen.
Right.
But you have to figure out how you think they just found you in the jungle and just brought you here? A lot of people believe that. They really think it was just that simple, but it's not. This is an ancient conflict. It's like trying to understand the movie by the credits. And then somebody arguing with you like, oh, I seen the movie. It said written by, I said, bro, that's not the movie. That's the credits. We in the credits. When it comes to history, we're in the credits.
Yeah.
One of the great teachers, John Henry Clark, said, half of human history was already done when the European came out the cave. So imagine where we at now. We not even in we so far removed from the events that happened that created the time we just so arrogant and thinking, oh, this is America. We got PlayStations, we got TV. This ain't nothing. All the major events that shaped the time we live in happened in the 1800s, the 1600s, 15, 14, 13. But how many black people got the patience to read that? All they want to do is argue with you and tell you why that's not who we are. But they don't have the patience to read anything. And then when you put them up on something, they just skeptics. So it's like it's an individual choice. How bad do you want to know who you are? If somebody told you that if you're in a position of lacking, you say I don't know who I am. And if somebody come and tell you who you might be, who are you to tell them that? Who are you to say I don't want to do that? You the one that don't know who you are. You're the one that's lost. You're the one that's asking people, well, who are we? Where we come from? Well, if someone came to you with a concept that might be true or might not, see if there's some credence to it. Right. See if you are a Hebrew Israelite. You might be, you might not. See if you are more. You might be, you might not. But what are you doing to see if it's true? Nothing but talking. You know what I'm saying? So people like Anton, it's not even about the Antons and the content creators of the world. It's about the people who support them. See, what I seen when I went through this with him, what really took me aback, because I already know he wouldn't talk to me like that in person. What took me back was the response from the people.
The comments.
Which sides they took, which narratives they ran with. That was what was alarming to me. I seen people say all types of stuff about me, so many judgments, and it's like it's the people that's the problem. It's not the government, it's not the white man, it's not Anton, it's the ignorance of the people. They don't know anything, and anybody waving a trinket in front of them can sway their whole mind, and they will never do their own homework on anything. And we're emotionally triggered. We don't have the patience and maturity to have discernment. We just go by what triggers us emotion. That's why the system can play with us all the time. They can easily sway your votes. They can easily sway your mind because they know that you're so emotional that once I trigger you, you're going to support something that might be the demise of your whole people because somebody says something you didn't like. We're rather a pretty lie than the ugly truth. And I learned that with this recent political happenings, how not to take it to politics, but but I want to focus on the people's minds. A lot of people hated Donald Trump. They thought he was the worst thing that ever happened to us.
Yeah.
But these same people turned around and let a white man named Joe Biden get on their platform and say, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. That's extremely racist to say. And black people were not offended. This man got in office and said, the first thing he did was he presented clean crack pipes and syringes as a outreach program to the inner city. Black people were silent. So it's not about Trump. It's not about Joe Biden. It's not about Illasophical. It's not about Anton Daniels. It's about the lack of maturity in the minds of black people. Yeah. We are easily swayed by emotional rhetoric, and we don't have the maturity to stand on hard truths. And people in power know that. They can get a rapper to tell you to go vote for this one, or get a rapper to tell you to eat a Happy Meal, and you are going to do it. Right. That ain't nobody's fault but yours. The Bible says, rightfully divide the word of truth. He said, I've not given you a spirit of fear, but of love and a sound mind. And our people don't use their mental capacity unless it's going to get them an immediate result economically. See, it takes a certain type of person to read something just to know it. That's a different type of person. There is no immediate gratification in knowledge. It's an internal reward that you have to be satisfied with. But that's not, people are not at that level of maturity. Right. But it's people that bled and died for you just to read. And we don't want to do it. So it's really just it's just an example of how we've devolved intellectually as people. Because like I always say, it's two things black people don't respect: history and science. These are two major areas that we must take serious, and we don't. So people can come and sway us with anything because they know you're not reading and not learning anything on your own. And if I get somebody that you admire to sway your mind, you're going to do it. So when I seen this thing with Anton, it just further proved that point, that we are swayed by imagery, not truth and knowledge. And we don't have the patience, and we don't have the heart and the maturity to say, you know what, brother or sister, I don't know. People don't understand the power of saying you don't know. That's a powerful statement. When you say I don't know something, that doesn't mean you're dumb. That opens the door for you to learn something. Right. That's a beautiful thing to say. I don't know. I'm always the person at work. I don't know. Could you help me out? I love to say that because that's going to give me the opportunity to know. But we so prideful. No, I know that. I know that. I remember I met a girl one time. She was talking about my mother taught me a lot of stuff. I read a lot of books. She showed me a library and all of that. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So she asked me about how I felt about, the different sexual communities. And I said, to each his own, but historically, that's not our culture. Right. She said, what? What you mean? What you mean that ain't our culture? I said, that's not. If you go back to Africa and all these ancient indigenous cultures, we always venerated the man and woman. Right. The woman hung up on me, blocked my number and all that. Now, mind you, she just went out her way to tell me how much she's read and show me her books. These people don't read anything. It's an image. It's the image of consciousness. It's a look of intelligence. It's a look of wealth. Like you were talking about Anton, the most ghetto thing you can do is be gaudy. That's ghetto. I got this. I got that. Look at me. That's what ghetto people do because they're not used to having. So for you to be so uppity against ghetto people, you're the most ghettoest person. See, people think ghetto means slang and sagging pants because they're so surface minded. No, ghetto is when you take image trinkets and make it think that makes you better than somebody. That's why they call it ghetto fabulous. I got a car, but it's a rich person who's driving a Subaru right now wearing the same khakis every day. So what is the look of, how does intelligence look? How does being rich look? There is no look for something like that. But our people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge, period.
Wow, I think that was beautifully said in terms of the problem, honestly, because when I was young, right, and you may know where I'm about to reference, right? There was a place in the inner city. It's called Everyone's Place. It was a library. It was a black library, and it was the only one in the city like it, like it. And my father used to take me there when I was a little girl. And when I got older, I started going on my own, and this is where I learned about the history of Black people in an in-depth way that you will not get in school or college. And that library, well, it's a store that sells books and different artifacts from Africa, but it was one of those places where people would come to the city and host events, like certain speakers and scholars within the Black community. And being that that place was so pivotal to just the community itself, learning about itself, if you were anybody of respect, you knew about that place and you had been to that place and you had their merchandise up on your shelf, that you had read, not like you bought it. You had to read it and actually put that information out there in terms of your active knowledge. And that's what people respected. But it goes back to what you said, that internal reward. Like, no, you're not going to get accolades in terms of, gold watches and cars and plane tickets and a lot of like stuff like that because you know a lot. No, but you do gain others' respect, which is more internal and more of an internal reward than anything else, which should be something that means something to you. But it's like, I credit that to my generation. Back in the day when I was young, you actually, like, there was no internet for you to go to learn anything. If you wasn't at the library, if you wasn't up underneath of an elder, or you didn't have that actual experience, there was no fronting for people to look at you. You had to be about that life, basically. So now that the internet is here, yes, it's helping us in some ways in terms of knowledge, because you can Google any and everything and pretty much fill your head with a lot of information. But at the same time, I feel like it's dumbing us down, it's giving us and taking away from us at the same time. So in essence, I don't feel like we're moving, because it's like we're running in place, moving forward, but underneath of us moving the opposite direction. So we're doing work, but we're not getting anywhere. Like, as a whole, I'm not saying individually we may not be. There might not be small pockets of people and groups that are moving forward in terms of being forward thinking collectively. But as a collective, it's almost like we're either standing still or regressing, simply because we have access to so much information. Whereas if you took that information away, it seems like relationships would be better. People's academic understanding of just reading would be better. Knowledge itself would be better. Communication would be better, because you would have to actually communicate in the flesh, which is where the real communicate. 90% of human communication is nonverbal. So whereas online everything is completely verbal, not a whole lot of cues you can pick up on. It's shifting our mindset to communicate with each other as if we're robots. Um, and that's what I'm saying. Like, some people will get online and just talk a certain way over difference of ideas, whereas that level of interaction historically has been reserved for in-person aggression under certain circumstances, like, civil war. But this is where I kind of feel like, as a society, we are regressing to a point where I see other governments trying to slow the train down. In some countries, the federal government there is paying for people to be in person with each other in terms of couples. They're paying men to get married. I know in Djibouti, that's a small country in Africa. Men are literally paid to marry more than one woman, because the deficiency of childbirth, the deficiency of marriages are going down. China, the Philippines, Vietnam, different places like that, even in as far west as India, in some places in Germany and places around there, the government now has to do what I consider damage control, and put money into people's pockets to put them in front of each other to, in a sense, correct what all this internet stuff has done to the whole world. Not even the community as far as we're concerned here. It's the whole world. And I think, as in normal fashion, Black people lead the charge in terms of the cultural imagery of such a debauchery. However, it's not just in the Black community in America. The issue of women saying, you know what, I don't need a man is global. Um, Birth rates are going down so fast. I had to actually like verify this because I said I know it probably should, but let me verify because this is a lot. And sure as you're born, this is what's happening, and money is being put into it, tax dollars to correct it. And so I haven't seen that in terms of the U.S. government, because the U.S. government, they last to do anything right. But other governments in the East, where they're historically they've been in play for thousands of years, they are seeing where they have to correct this internet stuff. So I know this with China, they regulate the internet and your, let's say, your rhetoric on the internet, as well as they're regulating other things because they're behind, they're ahead of the eight ball, if you know what I mean, in terms of where this is going. And I feel like in some ways we can see where it's going, but maybe as a community, we're okay with failure. And because we see where it's going. We see that no matter how much we argue online about the differences between men and women, dating, swirlers, people going overseas, whatever the case may be, we're we're not getting better overseas. We're not getting better swirling. We're not getting better being by ourselves. We're not getting better even coming together. And something as small as understanding how to actually communicate with each other the correct way in person is something we're having a hard time with. At least if you're early 40s and under, that's becoming an issue. And it's so much of an issue that I've had to punish my children and force them to go outside to interact. And it's something that I said, you know what, I don't want my children to grow up like this current adult generation where they can interact online. They're not educated in terms of how conversations should go, let alone what the conversation is. But they're there for entertainment reasons. And that entertainment really, it comes down to who can be the most ignorant with the most money seemingly on their outside and nothing else on the inside. And this is where I take offense with people like Anton, where he talks about his marriage, but at the same time, I can see as a person, like something's missing there. And I'm like, your marriage is not marriage goals for me based on the outside. I don't want to know what's on the inside. And I feel like, again, the rule is you don't bring that to the internet. You wouldn't open your windows while you're naked walking around in your house. There's certain things you just don't put out there because this is how it goes. But when you think reality is what you see on the internet, this is where the breakdown is. And I'm to a point where I refuse to talk about relationships. I refuse to talk about the issues between Black men and Black women. I'd rather get down to maybe more broader contexts of issues because we can't just keep going in that cycle. If people want to be together, they will be together. If they want to stay single and apart, that's their right to do. But to move forward, we have to literally do that and or move like as one of my exes said, a movement moves. It doesn't just stay talking about the same thing for the sake of money, bags, or whatever the case may be. Not that that's wrong, but that's not how it is. And I think people like yourself play a pivotal role in at least being those beacons of light in the dark, like backdrop of whatever this is that we're going through as a people now. um, because it's not just us. It's we have a different perspective on it, but it's not just us. And I would say that individuals like yourself are becoming less and less of a force in terms of numbers. However, I would say that that doesn't diminish your voice because it doesn't take 1,000 people to make difference in the world. Technically, it only takes one person to say the right thing at the right time. But I see where things are going, and honestly, I'm saddened by it. And I it's the same sadness that I felt watching that exchange between you and Anton. I just seen where, as a culture, we're just going downhill, and it's like, for what? Anton could have still got his bag, being respectful. It's like, He could still got his bag repeating whatever point he made. But it's like, why was that response more necessary? It's like, why? Like, people still gonna get their money. If it's about money, people still gonna get their money. You know.
I mean, at the end of the day, people know it's a different energy around, and they gotta feel like they gotta reclaim they self. Like, I'm somebody. I don't care where I go, I feel comfortable where I'm at. You know what I mean? I'm always had a way about myself where, and I'm not trying to be funny or braggadocious, but I just know how to get people to listen to me quick. So I don't need a car. I don't need nothing to do that. I just naturally have that ability. Some people need things, status to do that. And that's the difference. So he felt that energy. He felt that presence. And he felt like, okay, I need to reclaim, let people know. Because he was saying to him, I'm the king. I'm the king. I'm like, oh, yeah, of your world. You know what I'm saying? Like, but
Yeah.
that's when you dealing with people in real time. When you outside, you know how it is. You know how to read the nuances in people. You know who's intimidated. You know who's you just can feel that. It's nothing you can buy. It's not an app you could download. It ain't on you. It's in you. But as far as our people, the difference between our people and everybody else is we waiting for a leader. We waiting for a group. We waiting for a pamphlet. Everybody else is just being themselves. What is the Chinese group? What is the Arab group? What is the European group? What is the Russian group? They don't have groups. They just Nigerian. They just Russian. They just Vietnamese. That concept of being a part of a national understanding is what unites them. Because in that national understanding has a history of custom and culture. Simple. Our people don't know who we are. And the word black is an ambiguous term that can mean a million things, but it doesn't mean culture or nationality. Correct. And instead of just learning what that is, we rather try to reinvent the wheel as if we greater than our ancestors. There is no record in history where people that look like us say we are black. When you say who you are, it's supposed to immediately connect you to a land
and culture,
landmass. When you say I'm Nigerian, Nigerian. Russian, Russian. When you say you black, that connects you to where? It connects you to a social experience, not a actual national understanding. So that's why we're going to always be lost, because we're a nation of narcissistic people. We're a nation of individuals that only come together when somebody shoots us. But outside of that, we just on our own. I think the way I think. Somebody down the hall think the way they think. There is no unified thought amongst our people outside of we want money, and pretty much that's it. And if somebody do something to us that's not of our culture, we gonna tear this bitch down. That's black culture. Black culture is over with. It has ran its course. It's time to mature. Join the ranks of the family of nations. Because we always say we the first people. They all come from us. So if they all come from you, how they got a nationality and you just call yourself a color? And you want them to respect you.
Right.
This is real. Like, this is not about joining some group. Right. If you look in it, this is common language. The word black or white is an adjective. It's not a noun.
It's not.
It describes what you are. It describes. It doesn't define.
True.
So we have to mature and say, okay, let's take it back. What events took place that even got us in America? We at a point where everything we think we know about religion, about politics, about culture has ran its course. It's over. It's time for some fresh ideas and new perspectives to get us to where we need to be. Because we believe, regardless of what, even in our ignorance or in our positivity, as far as the diaspora of people, of our people all over the world, we lead it.
Right.
So we got the power to get something popping, and everybody else is going to follow. They follow us in our ignorance. Hip hop runs the world. Hip hop started from Black Americans.
Right.
For lack of a better word. You know what I mean? That's not what I like to call myself, but that's what we say. But Black people in America started hip hop. Black people in America started the revolution and fighting back to unfair politics. It was Black people in America that started music that changed the world. We lead the cultures, period. So we got to do it in every level, because this is certain. Because I've met people from Africa where we know more about their culture historically than they do sometimes. So it's something unique about us. It's something special about us that we feel like we got to get to the answer. Mm-hmm. So let's get to the answer. You know what I'm saying? Because keep calling yourself black is only ostracizing yourself from the rest of the world. Because other people say, I love y'all, but I'm not going to put my people in harm's way to defend a people that don't even know who they are. Why you think it's so easy to introduce all these other sexualities of people who can say I'm a man, but I'm a woman, or I'm a woman, I'm a man? You know why it's so easy to do that? Because we started it. Because you told the world you black, and they looking at you like, no, you're not. Right. So if you can be black, a man could be a woman could be a man. It's all the same. It's people calling themselves something that they are not. Right. So it's deep. we don't understand how problematic what we say matters. That's why when you go to court, they say what you say can and will be used against you. See, we respond from emotion. Or they call themselves white. Well, fuck that, I'm black. But you're not. You're actually brown. You're actually tan. You're actually that. But that's offensive to black. When you get specific with black, we associate specificity. We associate specificity, structure, and limitation with acting white.
Yeah, this is true.
We have a mental problem.
Yeah, we do.
And it's called the nigger. It's called the Negro.
That's true.
We have to exercise that demon. If you were Spanish people call us black because that's what we call ourselves. They say negro because that's what you call yourself. In Spanish, negro is black. So it's not like they think you that. It's like, well, that's. But if me and you were to say tomorrow, find out that we were Dominican and we started speaking Spanish, they'd say, "Hey, Moreno."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that. It ain't even a thought. Right. So who are we really? Why can't we find the word black in history when we read about the Phoenicians, the Etruscans, the Moors, the Berbers? We don't find that word. Right. But we keep trying to retroactively change history to fit our confusion today. Let that shit go. Humble yourself and say, you know what? I don't know. Let me go learn. And we're gonna get somewhere, I promise you. But until that day, you're gonna see what you're gonna see. Because everybody wanna be the man and everybody wanna be right instead of being righteous. Like if I can learn something tomorrow that contradicts something I've been studying for 10 years, if it makes sense, I'll let it go like that. I'm not tied to nothing.
Right.
I'm not tied to anything. I'm tied to what's real. And if I find out something that's new, that'll change my paradigm, that I do my homework in and say it's real, it's real. I'm not that emotionally tied to any organization, any train of thought, or none of that. So our people, we don't have an identity. So our identity becomes our fraternity, our job, our podcast. Because you don't have nothing. See, other cultures, they come here only for what? That flag they wave.
Yeah.
What's our flag? And then we don't even think we're American. You are American.
Right.
America don't mean the United States of America. America is a continent from Canada
and all the way down
to U.S. to Mexico to South America. You American, bruh. So it's like we so angry. We let our anger blind us from reality.
Yeah.
Now we just arrogant and it's all about money. Money without national standards mean nothing. That's why we see so many people get rich, but the people ain't going nowhere. Because if you don't look at me as if you don't have a national, see, you can't get no Arab person to go against an Arab person. Because it's bigger than them. It's about Arabia.
Right.
It's about Russia. It's about Nigeria. We don't even think we're American. So what unites us? Nothing.
Yeah.
Blackness is nothing. When you go to a funeral, you wear black. Because black does mean death. And if we taught the European to speak, guess who told them that black means death? Your ass. But we don't want to deal with that. There's no way you can be that in a political forum to represent yourself nationalistically and globally. What you say amongst yourself, oh yeah. Like I could call, that's my so-and-so. You can call me Illa, but if I'm going to court, I'm Eric Hutchins. See, we don't know how to put stuff in its proper perspective because we emotional and we just want to be down and want to be right, and we want to relate to the lowest person in the hood instead of bringing them up. I was in the hood with real dudes doing fed time, real killers and all of that, talking just what I'm talking now. I don't never feel like I got to dumb my mind down to where they're at. That's why I understand to a degree what Anton tries to say, but he's not empathetic enough and have enough information and experience to word it correctly. So he just sounds like a conservative white man. But our people have to humble themselves and still pull ourselves up at the same time. You can be humble and still have a standard at the same time. We just extremists. We either tough or we soft. Either rich or you poor. We don't understand balance.
Right. And you know what? I'm within the last 2 years, I'm learning that dynamic in terms of my experience through martial arts. In terms of, people say, well, you need aggression, right? And then other people say, well, no, you just need technique. And I'm like, you don't need to be aggressive to hurt someone, right? And you don't necessarily need to know every technique to, be the fight. So there has to be a balance someplace in between. And I'm learning to calm myself down and be very still, even under, non-still situations. And I feel like that's a personal experience for me, but in a broader context, when it comes to our people, I do feel that and it is an internal feeling that because I feel like in our heart space we want to be better, but we, like you said, we're just not there because we just don't know how to get past our emotions. We don't know how to get past our need to be seen, to be accepted based on external trinkets. So this is where we're at, and as someone who has been born here, right? And I've done my ancestry to a large degree on my father's side and some on my mother's side. To your point, and I know I'm running short on your time, but to your point, do you think that it's a bit difficult for people here in America, those of us that are here in America, to understand our nationality and our race and our ethnicity, given how mixed history has forced us to be, from the idea that when the Europeans came here, there wasn't just Native Americans here. People don't know that. We know that the ancient Egyptians traveled here. We have empirical data and proof that they traveled here. They made wives and they took wives, and some of them stayed here, went back. Like, we have that evidence. We have evidence of the European influence, the East Asian influence. And keep in mind, then East Asian influence started out as a black influence here. So, and then you have the transatlantic slave trade on top of that. So it kind of forces us to say the question of, well, if we are a combination of this experience or this experiment on this landmass, does that make it hard for us to come together under like the Russians come together because of Russia?
No, it doesn't. We just have to be studious enough to learn, or be humble enough to learn from someone who is studious enough to learn. And me, I've always been a student. Like, I was never influenced by content creators. I was always influenced by hip hop, the streets, and educators, professors, people who study a train of thought and dedicate their life to it. Not rich people. People like Phil Valentine, people like John Henry Clark, people like Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, people like Ashir the Duke of Tears, people like Red Pill, people like A.A. Rashid, people who study things, people like Dr. Amos Wilson, Dr. Layla Africa,
I remember.
Queen of Four. Like, I can go on and on. Dr. Chancellor, people who study, who have concentrated study, where they laser focus on a train of thought. That's who influenced me. So when you study history, Egypt is it's like right now. There's people that are Irish, Russian. They were born in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But are they truly African
Right.
by blood? No. They are national of the country. Like we're nationals of America. But your bloodline is Moorish. Not because I said so. Because that's what it is. That's why people, like I said, the Spanish, they call dark-skinned people morenos or morenas. Where does that come from? That come from a place. Spanish people don't speak Mexican.
Right.
They don't speak Puerto Rican. They don't speak Dominican. They all speak what? Spanish. Why? Because the whole line, the genealogy of Spanish people is an amalgamation of, where's Spain at? In Europe. Spain is in Europe. So the Spaniards, the Spanish Latin people is the children of Moors and Europeans. They came together and created a whole new people called Latin. That's why in their language, the word Moor is already there. See, it's not hard to figure it out if you just pay attention and get out your feelings. When you're dealing with American law, you're dealing with a continuation of English law. The law of England is still prominent. That's why when you deal with American history, who came here? The Pilgrims came from England here. So the law of England is still prevalent in how they set up the law here. And in the law of England, the word black is not a word applicable to anybody that's a legal person. That's why they called us that, to take us out of legal protection. That's why they can do whatever the hell they want, and it's not remedy. They might change, they might do something sometimes when the protest is too high or when things are just getting out of hand, just to quell the political fires. But on the most part, they don't have to do nothing, because you tell us what you are, and what you say you are can and will be used against you. I want to read something to you just to give you some context to what I'm saying. This is from a book to show you how all these things are connected. This is from a book called, and I've said this on my channel before because I want people to really read for themselves, because a lot of people run their mouth and they talk, they can't give you no scholarship so you can learn for yourself. I don't like just telling people what to do. I like to give you information so you can read for yourself, so you can come up to a conclusion with your own mind. So this is a book called The Dogs of God. Columbus. They always say Christopher Columbus was the so-called first person to come here, right? In the modern time. We know he's not the first person. But when it comes to the kicking off of American and Christian politics, his name is brought up. The book is called Columbus, The Inquisition and the Defeat of the Moors. That title alone should show you that the Moorish identity is connected to the founding of America. So I'm gonna read this real quick.
God, oh my! Hold on, let me write that down. Hold on, I gotta write that down. Where's my pad at? Here we go. Okay, let me see that.
I'm gonna read a real short excerpt just to give you some context of where we need to focus our studies. This man, this is just in the prologue, this is not even in the meat of the book, just in the beginning. This man said, in fact, it is little appreciated. Where we at? We in America, right? All right. He said, in fact, it is little appreciated, especially by Americans, how intimately the discovery of the New World is bound up with the victory of Christianity over Islam in the so-called Spanish Reconquest. With the expulsion of the Spanish Jews, see, people think Jew is a race, it's a religion.
It is.
It says Spanish Jews, with the terrible Spanish Inquisition and the papacy of a Borgia Pope. In this book, I have tried to make those links. It is one of the enduring ironies of this period that the barbaric medieval institution of the Spanish Inquisition contributed greatly to the founding of the first modern nation state. Listen to this. It has been suggested that the three most important years in American, not African, in American history are 1492. That's when the Moors fell from Spain due to Ferdinand and Isabella. 1776, that's when America declared its independence. In 1865, that's the Civil War. He said of these 3 years, that's why they called it Philadelphia 76ers, the 76ers, because that's when America became independent. What's more important in America than 1776 and 1865? This man said, of these three, 1492 goes far beyond American history. It is pivotal as well in Spanish history, in Jewish history, in Arab, in world, in church history. Indeed, it is difficult to imagine another single year in the past millennium where so many significant strands of history came together and so changed the world in one swoop. The 500-year movement. Remember we were talking about movements? He said the 500-year movement to conquer the Moors, the end of the 800-year reign of the glorious culture of Islamic Spain, the consolidation of the modern Spanish state, the sinister explosion of the Spanish Inquisition, the Spanish Renaissance in art and literature, the expulsion of the Jews, the discovery of the New World, and the subsequent division of the world between Spanish and Portuguese spheres of influence. What this man just said is when the black people fell from power, the entire world changed in one moment. So how dare you tell me that's not who you are? How dare you tell me that that time period and that definition of identity is irrelevant?
Right.
We got to educate ourselves because we always talk about reparations, but reparations come to a fallen state. What is the state of black land? It doesn't exist. But if you know who you are, you have a reparation argument. I'm not saying that you should do that or not do that, but if you want to take it there, you got to take it there.
Yeah.
You fell as a Moor. You are not going to rise as a black man.
Wow. That's a lot to take in. I'm telling you now because there's a lot of obscurity in our community around the Moorish community. And you know, to the extent that most people understand that history here in the let's say in the urban areas. However, I think it does deserve more, more, let's say, investigation on our part. But that goes back to what you said earlier, that we have to do the reading ourselves, and we have to know that history. No one's going to actually teach it to us. However, I'm pretty sure that there is an undiscovered history that is pertinent to us in 2023, that we just are ignorant to. And I'm gonna include myself in it, because the most I know about Moors is that they did things better than the Europeans. That's the most I know about them, that they did whatever they did, they just did it better than the Europeans. Because no one ever took the time to show me a book about them or a conversation about it. I just never came across it. As much as I know very little about that.
I mean, it's another popular book, right? A lot of you probably seen this book on a lot of people's shelves. It's a book by Chancellor Williams, where he's not even a fan, because people associate the word Moor with organizations.
Yeah.
The Moorish Science Temple of America, or this, that, and the third. That has nothing to do with the word. Those groups are just building on the truth of what that word is and trying to reap the benefits of what that means. But that don't mean you have to join something to be a Moor. It's like right now, you'll take 10 people. You'll have a Haitian, you'll have a Jamaican, you'll have a Dominican, and they'll all be dark like me. Somebody from America be like, oh, they all black. They all Moors.
Right.
See, blackness is not going to unite the diaspora. That's why Africans and Jamaicans and Haitians and all
Right,
they be like, I'm not black.
Right.
Because it's not going to bring them. We get offended. What you mean? Because that word has no meaning. It's a description of death. That's what it means. When something is dark, if you close your eyes, it's black. Can you see in the black? No. So how can I be that in a legal sense, dealing in a world of nationalities and nations? It's just we got to grow up. So the word more is the word that's going to unify the diaspora. Even in Jamaica, they was called the Cameroons. See, this word has been used in your face this whole time. We just don't look where you live at. Baltimore. I live in North Carolina. There's a city out here called Moore Park. They know who you are. It's all around you, and it's been in your face the whole time. If you look at the European aristocracy, they all have what's called Moorish heads of coat on their coats of arms, and they're called what? Blue bloods. Why? Because they can trace their lineage back to Egypt. Egypt was called Tamoray.
That is true. That's
the Moors were the custodians of Egyptian knowledge.
Right.
Because they were the Egyptians. So when they say in the Bible, because the Bible is a lot of conflated information, when they say that Pharaoh kicked out because the Hebrew Israelites said, we was kicked out of Egypt. When Egypt became like a metropolis like America, where this is how they got into power. Say I got my own family. We all dark skinned. We running the world. Because you got to understand, Europe was in the dark ages when we was running it. That's why you think there's so many films and movies like Game of Thrones and Valhalla. They all talking about this period, but they not telling you where you was in that period. But they talk about that period because it has great significance to today.
Right.
So where were you when they was Vikings? What were you doing? Who were you?
That they totally leave out every single time.
Every single time, but it ain't left out of these books. But they know you ain't gonna read. You gonna watch TV. So if you look at the Moors, if you look at these films, they're showing you where these people was back then. So even you look at these Viking movies. They lived in villages. They was very unclean, but they were still a king of it. Like it's a show right now called. It's a show on Netflix. It's a Viking show on Netflix, but it's based on actual European history when they was fighting the Danes and the Saxons. That's where you get the word Anglo-Saxon from. The Danes is the old word for the Dutch. So they show how they got into it, how they had these wars, and how they basically built up Europe. And a king in Europe at the time would be filthy, living in a barn, but he was a king. So when we encountered them, we said, okay, we're going to upgrade your land. We're going to give you information. We're going to teach you. And in return, we'll marry. And you can marry into us. So now when we come to your place, we got access to your resources and vice versa. We could have been millionaires talking to people who was poor at the time, but based on title, they were still considered a king in their own right. So what they would do is once the people got married into the bloodline, technically, they're part of the family. So what they would do is they would have children. They already got the name from the Moor. They done married into a Moorish nobility family. They the kings of the Anglo-Saxon, whatever, Netherlands or whatever. And they done married. They done joined family with a noble Moorish home, Moorish house. What they would do is they would just have children with the English. So eventually they'd kill off the original bloodline, but they'll still be privy to the resources. Why? Because they have married by the blood. So when you see all these people, you see all these white folks like, oh, they got all the money. Oh, the Europeans, they run because they married into your family thousands of years ago and killed out your family. It's called ethnic cleansing. So their face is European, but the blood is you. And the fact that their blood is you entitles them to the land. But now you just a black person. You see how they did it?
I see how they did that. And you know what? I went to school for genetics and I got my degree in forensics. And to a degree, I understand how genetics within 3 to 4 generations can at least phenotypically be completely opposite. However, as much as we understand the intermarrying over and over and over again, and how cells do not forget information when it splits, it's the same cell with the same information. How what you just said, you can have the bloodline of a people, but the phenotype of another people, and it still be the same bloodline, and you can overlook that easily because you're paying attention to the outward expression versus, let's say, the trace history. Now, I don't know if there's any projects that on right now going on in terms of rebuilding that history from a genetic and scientific standpoint. However, like from the standpoint of information being accessible within books, we can come to that understanding. But I'll be honest with you, like, it takes a special person to even be able to accept that level of information and then regurgitate it and understand it and give it back so that it can make sense. Because I'll be honest with you, you're talking about a whole section of world history that deserves its own section in the college campus, like a whole section.
But it's there. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, we got to realize something. When I deal with Europeans, where I work at now, I only knew this brother. He's 25. Because I'm not too young. I'm 38. Okay. When I was talking to his brother, he was talking about, because one thing about white folks, they want to have these conversations. They just don't know how to approach it. But they're very enamored with the black dilemma. Mm-hmm. Very. Because it's almost a fandom, but also a resentment. Not necessarily because they want to be you, and some of it is that, but a lot of it is they know who you are. So they like, how did you get here? While totally ignoring how they people interfered, but still, there's still a respect. There's a inquiry out of really respect because they know you something great. They know it. So he when he talked to me, he say, "Excuse me, Moorish people, they get it right away." I remember one time I was in DC, I was doing Uber, and these 3 women from Australia got in my car. Mm-hmm. In DC, it's people from all over the world. Right. And they said, "Are you you look like you're from Africa or something?" I said, "No, I'm Moorish." And they immediately said, "Oh, our uncles are Moorish. We have Moors in our family too." Like it was nothing. It wasn't no, huh? What you say? You ain't that. It's nothing. It's us that have the issue. They've been putting it in your face for years. There was a movie that came out in the 90s to show you that the word Moor has nothing to do with religion, has nothing to do with anything. It's about who you are. There was a movie called, I think, Black Knight or First Knight. I think it was called Black Knight. It was starring Martin. He went back in time in medieval Europe. He had on a football jersey, some jeans, and some sneakers.
Okay.
As soon as he got there, what did they call him?
A Moor.
Moor. And he kept saying, "Don't call me that. Don't call me that. That ain't my name."
That is true.
The European is slick. They like to play practical jokes with you. So, and they put it in film. It's like, look at you. You don't even know who you are. Even when we tell you who you. So it has nothing to do with religion. You are a Moor. That's you are. Even the original, what do you think the original, why they talk about the Japanese when they call them the Yasuke? The name for the warrior in Japan is what? Samurai. It's all in front of you. You just don't know what you're looking at. And you don't know how deeply entrenched that word is tied into the fabric of global international language. It's not nothing you got to join. It's all around you. And it always was all around you. We just don't pay attention.
Oh, wow.
We're so caught up in today. But today is nothing. Today is a grain of sand on the beach.
Pretty much. You know what? I will attest to this, right? To the point that you and Anton were speaking on in terms of the inspiration of people to change. I will attest that today I have been more inspired to learn about Moorish history today than I ever have in my entire life. I did not know. So I I've heard the words that you said, but I didn't put it together. And obviously, it takes someone to kind of connect them dots and put them close together for you. But I will say, because I have another channel where I do a lot of historical conversation and whatnot. And I think this is actually worth that investment and that conversation. And I do feel very inspired, honestly, because I knew nothing of it. I knew nothing, and I feel bad now that I knew nothing. But
Now,
I
I'm gonna read this last thing to you because I like to give scholarships. So this is a popular book. You're gonna meet a lot of Pan-Africanists, a lot of so-called conscious people. They're gonna throw this book in your face.
Yeah,
They ain't read it. This is what he said. And this man is in this book. He's not a person that's a proponent of Islam, even though Islam, a lot of Moors was Islamic.
Yeah.
He's not really big. He looked at Islam from a colonial. He looked at it from a perspective where it kind of captured our people and did a damage to it. But despite that, I want you to listen to what he said. So this book right here, this very popular book in the Black community, Destruction of Black Civilization. He said, now again, just who were the Moors? The answer is very easy. The original Moors, like the original Egyptians, were Black Africans. See, when people hear that, they'll say, see, he said we Black. No. He's saying you are Moor. So who they call him Black is really the children of the Moors, but this is how people think. He said the original Egyptians were Black Africans. As amalgamation, because Egypt became full of mixed races. That's why sometimes when they show ancient pictures of Egyptians and they look a little light-skinned, some of that stuff is not actually a lie because Egypt became such a melting pot. They had Greek pharaohs, they had Asian pharaohs. It became like United States of America where anybody could be the president. It became far removed from what it was in its inception. That's why the Egyptians left Egypt, turned to Islam, and ruled Europe. These are the same people. He said, as amalgamation became more widespread, only the Berbers, Arabs, and coloreds in the Moroccan territories were called Moors, while the darkest and black-skinned Africans were called Blackamoors. Eventually, Black was dropped from Blackamoor. In North Africa and Morocco, in particularly, all Muslim Arabs, mixed breeds, and Berbers are readily regarded as Moors. The African Blacks, having had even this name taken from them, must contend for recognition as Moors. He said it, not me. He said contend for that recognition. Why would he say that? Because that's who you are. Malcolm X, remember Malcolm X, he was white man, fuck the white man. He went to Mecca and came back with a whole new perspective. He understood nationality. And who killed them? Black people. See, once you understand the truth, now you got to look at it like this. If we Moors and Black means death, you got to watch the people who keep telling you that you Black. That's your enemy.
Yeah.
Historically, Black colleges, Black entertainment, Black boy magic, Black. Who keep telling you that's who you is? That's limiting you and keeping you in a certain confined space. That's not by mistake, that's by design. What the hell is a historical Black college? The most popular one is Howard, is named after a European. They go into a historically Black college and they come out as what? A Greek.
He said a Greek. Wait a minute. And you know what? Sadly, you're 1,000% correct. And I remember when I forgot who I asked that question. I was like, wait a minute, why is the school called Howard? And why is it called Howard? And I don't know what they said, but I remember thinking, how is that a historically Black college? Did it start off like with his family? Like which like I don't understand. But you're 1,000% correct. We do need to start correcting small stuff, like for instance, what we really call ourselves. and why we call ourselves these things. And I think I'll forgive people if they're incorrect.
Yeah, you know, it is. I'm not gonna go around saying, I'm just making you think, because you'll be surprised who might come to your aid once you recognize who you are. See, people ain't going to. It's like if somebody seen your mother raised you right, and you end up being in the street doing a bunch of dumb stuff. They just sitting there watching, like, your mother did not raise you like that.
Right.
And then you finally get your stuff together, and all of a sudden they help you out because they like, that's the child I know. That's the woman I know that your mother raised. The world looking at us like that ain't the people I know. I ain't jumping in that shit. Black people, black this. I ain't messing with that. They know who them Moors is though, because they are the fathers of their culture. They know who you are, man. We don't know.
Listen,
we do not know.
I had the foggiest idea about the war on the Moors, because they paint this picture that the Moors were just a group of people that civilized a few white people, and then it just kind of dissipated into nothingness, and nobody knows what happened. Like nothing happened. Like they literally are erasing that part about history. But like I forgot who said it. If they tell you look right, make sure you looking left. Just on the strength.
Speaking of that, I'm glad you said that. Speaking of looking right and left, why you think? Because they speak. See, another thing we got to understand is etymology and symbolism. These are actual, real, literal genres of thought, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Symbolism is real. That's why, like, you see the color green, it can mean money. It can mean being fertile. It can mean vegetation. Red can mean danger. It can mean stop. It symbolizes that. Right. So when it comes to that, our people don't understand that what symbolizes progression is not the color black. The symbols that I lost my train of thought. But symbol etymology and symbolism is two things we really gotta respect, because this is what I was about to say. When you look at the quarters, there's one coin that's looking the other way. The penny. It's copper colored. The definition for American is, and you understand, American. See, more is nouns are interchangeable.
Right.
More, murderer, mer, the same thing. M-U-U-R, M-E-R, M-O-O-R, it's all the same. So Abraham Lincoln is on the penny, and he's the only person facing the other direction of the other pennies. But who was Abraham Lincoln? His mother was a Melungeon. Melungeons are hybrid Moors. So they are always talking to you. They're just speaking on many different levels. They're not gonna come out and bring out we waiting for a billboard in a parade to say, "Hey, black people, you're more." No, they're not gonna do that. You dealing with secret societies. You dealing with they have a principle where it's like, we're gonna, because they feel like they can. I'm showing, because we think everybody look at life like us. Like right now, you can see 4 books on the table. We'll say how to get rich, how to meet a man, how to cook, how to cut, how to plant vegetables, and the 4th book will say how to talk to the devil. Somebody gonna pick up that book and read it.
Right.
That don't mean just because you won't read it.
Right.
Don't mean somebody won't read it. So we think that everybody thinks like us. You dealing with a person and a people who will go to any means to get to the truth. They'll do stuff you won't do. And
now,
sometimes
I know about them.
So they have a different psychology. So they have a belief where if we tell them what we're doing, then we're not going to be held responsible. What they don't do is tell you where to look. So they'll put the truth in a movie and put some fake stuff in your church or in your school. And then you're going to say, well, hey, you told me that was a movie. They're going to say, who told you to listen to me?
Right. Yeah.
It ain't their job to tell you where to go. All they got to do is put it all out there, and they feel like, hey, we told them. Look at America. They'll tell you some stuff is fake, and then make a movie about it. So what's really real? It's you. It's your mind and how you put things together. Even in the Matrix, who did Neo meet? Morpheus. Morpheus means Lord of the Dream. So they're always telling you who you are in many ways. We just don't pay attention because we waiting for Jay-Z to say it, or Beyonce to say it, or LeBron to say it. And that's where we go wrong. These people are just extensions of corporate America. Corporate means dead. The first word in corporate is corpse. That's why you ever notice to succeed in corporate America, who you are have to die.
Yeah.
Everything is language. Everything is word. The Bible said in the beginning there was the word, and the word was God, and the word was with God. That's why when you put letters together, they call it what? Spelling. Because what you say casts a spell on something. So words is very powerful. You look at the Asian, you look at because more represents all of us. Jamaica, Haiti, Africa, it's all of us. You got Japanese, you got Chinese, you got Vietnamese, you got Thai. But collectively, they're what? Asian.
Yeah.
Collectively, we are Moors.
Yeah.
Period.
Oh my God. Okay. I think my audience, I didn't know y'all was gonna get this much of a history lesson, because I be reserving stuff like this for certain places. But I'm so happy that you shared that with me. I'm definitely there's something I'm working on now, and now that you bring that to my attention, I have a lot of work to, at least more work to do on that, given what you just said. I don't even think I should go forward with the project until I know more about that and do my own research into that. And I'm so grateful that you came and you blessed us with that information. Wow. Well,
yeah, I stayed longer than I thought because
listen,
I'm really passionate about this. This train of thought, because like everybody else, I wanted to know who I was. I went to different trains of thoughts, but when I got here. And I got introduced to the Moorish Science Temple of America, and I don't attend anymore. But peace to those brothers. I got love for them. But when I got to this train of thought, it didn't break. Like when you weighed it against information, like certain information, when you weigh it up, it kind of breaks. It doesn't really have no standing. And when you get to the root of it, it's just a emotional thing, a ego thing. Because when you say I'm black.
Right.
You either too high over people or too low. Because when people say I'm black from two perspectives. They say, well, I'm black. They did us dirty. The white man. So people be like, well, I'm Nigerian. And then we got the other black where it said, well, we the black kings and gods of the universe. So it's like too high. Right. So when you say I'm a Moor, you looking people right in their eyes. You eye to eye with them. You at the same level instead of too high or too low. You right there. Black is all over the damn place. That's why they even got sayings that say gay is the new black. So black doesn't even control itself. You can't turn more into nothing else. Black is ambiguous. It can be any goddamn thing. You know what I'm saying?
At this point, I don't even like the word anymore, and I'm so sad. I'm so sad. I don't like the word.
Hey, but, be renewed, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You know what I'm saying?
It's so true, and I don't blame myself for being ignorant. But if I stay ignorant, then I blame myself. So I got a lot of information to go through. And that book, I don't have that book actually, but I know so many people reference that book in their conversation. But as many books as I have around here, I don't have that one, and I should. But I do have another. I think I have another book by Chancellor Williams, if I'm not mistaken. I think, but I'm definitely gonna follow up on that one and the Dogs of God. I really got to get that one. I hope that's on Kindle.
There's another one you should get called The Moors in Spain by Stanley Lane Poole. Get that, and I'll send you stuff. I can send you certain videos where people have when they debate this topic and people have to basically disprove it, and they never can do it. You know what I mean? Because it's really, this is who we are, and it's a reason why we never heard of it. It's a reason why we the only people in the entire world who have taken pride in being a crayon and wonder why we ain't getting nowhere. See, when you say if we all as a people overnight collectively said, yo, we Moors, listen to what the man said in the book I read. He said, when we fell, the whole world changed. So flip that. What you think is going to happen if we all realize that we are? The whole world is going to change again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they got to deal with that. They got to deal with they can't run from it. This treaty has been made. There's so many things that happen under that premise. Mm-hmm. You know, the first country to recognize the United States of America as its own entity. You know what country was the first country to recognize USA?
I think I know, but I'm not sure.
Morocco.
Really?
Look it up.
Okay.
But that's not by design. It's not a coincidence.
Morocco.
Yes.
My God.
Obama even said it.
Okay. Well. Okay. See, he's I get what you're saying, but see, he's.
I'm not saying that to advocate who he was.
Right.
I'm just saying that certain truths is undeniable.
Right.
They have to say certain stuff just so they could feel like, well, we told them something. He also created something called the Act for the Rights of Indigenous People. See, one of the rights of America is everybody has the right to a nationality. Mm-hmm. We don't understand that.
Yeah, we don't.
We never took advantage of that. We're trying to turn black into a nationality. You're not going to do it. It's never, ever going to work. That's why they gave us what? Civil rights. Civil just mean behavior. You don't got human rights. That's what we need. Mm-hmm. But you get that when you know who you are, because humanity is a part of nations. Where does black stand in humanity? In humanity. Where's the black flag at the United Nations?
It's not. And it is completely, at least from what I understand, tied to an experience. And you when I learned that, right, it was a few years ago. I was at work. I was working for MVA, and a South African white couple, and I mean Lily White, came in, and they were South African. And the husband said, I said, what is your race and ethnicity, on the questionnaire thing. And he was like, I'm African American. Just real loud to me, right? And his wife was like, shh, no, you're not African American. Don't say that here. And he was like, why can't I say I'm African American? I have my citizenship. I'm now American. I'm African. I'm African American. She was like, honey, please lower your voice. African American here does not mean what it means over there. That is and she said that's an experience between a people and a history here. That's not an ethnicity rate. That's not what that is. And when she said that to him, I understood the difference. And I'd never been to South Africa, but he was right. He was right.
But he's not a Moor though.
Right. And I get it. And that's when it really clicked for me, when he was like, I'm just as African American as anyone else. And I'm looking at him like, sir, you look like you're Swedish, but okay. But I get it. He was right and he was wrong. But the wrong point is where we need to kind of like elevate ourselves. At that point where he's wrong, that's where we have to pick up.
Because we got to go to a place where they can't go with semantics. You can't. He could be an African American. He might even be black, because black is just a status. If you look at the census, they have three. They have black, they got white.
Yeah.
Black says any racial group from sub-Saharan Africa.
Right.
Under white, it says North African.
Yeah, it does.
Middle Eastern.
Yeah, it does.
And European. So yeah, 2 out of the 3 descriptions under white, it's not even white. So what are they really saying? So we have to ask questions of if we know this is the truth, what the hell are the so-called thought leaders of our community fucking talking about? Nothing. They just got us running in circles. It's the white man. Right. Because now we know the truth. So if this is the truth, what is y'all talking about? Nothing. You got to understand, people get paid to keep us where we at because our plight is big business, man.
Yeah.
The black experience in America, it creates movies, it
Mm-hmm.
creates film.
Mm-hmm.
It's a business. Black trauma is an industry. So there's no profit in them telling us who we are. That's why I can't stand all these. I'm tired of films that come out that only show, like, and I watch it, but stuff like Power, the Snowfalls. It's like, that's all we gonna make. Why we going? One thing I respect about the European, when it comes to movies, he becomes anybody. He understands the power of projected imagination. Mm-hmm. We think, I'm gonna keep it real. I'm gonna make a movie about when my mother got raped 7 times. Why? You have what's called creative license. You can project anything you want in this world, and all you're gonna do is talk about a crackhead. Right. You can make yourself Superman. You create anything. White people make themselves everything. They even make a movie where they Egyptian. All we know how to do is make gangster shit and hood traumatic films and think that's keeping it real. No, you can create a reality that ain't even here through film, dummy. That's why they call it the magic of Hollywood, because it can create something that's not there through the thought. Look how powerful the movie Black Panther was. That was the highest selling movie in this Marvel history. Why? Because it showed us in power. Yeah. But we was running stuff for so long that you ain't even got to make the shit. What do you think they be getting all these concepts for, like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings? They're not that creative. They study history, change the faces, change the names, add a little fantastical. But Star Wars might have been the story of a Moorish king in 1400, and you don't know. Actually, they just study history, and they know how to repackage it and create all types of fantastical novels. Right. Because they know who you are. They're not that creative. Right. They're not that creative, man. It's really it's so crazy. They put the truth in the smallest stuff. Even it's a show called it was a Muppet movie, came out in the 80s, called The Dark Crystal. It's a children's movie. It's on Netflix now. They did a new one called The Age of Resistance. What a coincidence. So in this movie, they said there were 7 tribes of people. They said some of them were knowledgeable, some were warriors, some were peaceful sheep herders, or whatever it is. They described these seven tribes of people. They said they came from Thra. That's what they call, like, the god of that thing. But Thra sounds like Ra, Allah. You got to see how they play with words. So they said they come from Thra. And they had a woman that was like a sorcerer that, like, protected them. Her name was Algra. And they said another people came that was not from Thra, called the Skeksis. And they looked like old, like, buzzards. And they dressed, and when you look at their dress wear, they dress like old European aristocracy. They said the Skeksis confused Algra and made her focus on the stars, while they called the original people the Gelfling. They said they convinced the Gelfling that they were the gods, and the Gelfling ended up worshiping these people. This is in a goddamn cartoon.
Oh my God. I've been off the grid too long, because I have been off the grid. I can't see. I'm gonna go search that.
The Dark Crystal came out in the 80s. They did a new one on Netflix, and they made a little series.
That is so weird. And now that you say it that plainly, it makes sense, and it connects to what we know is true, and not necessarily what we believe, but what we know. Even if we don't like it, obviously we don't, but it makes a lot of sense, and to a large degree, right? And not that at the time I knew what you're saying, but in the series that I'm working on, it's an animated series. It's called Finding Osir, which is the Egyptian Greco word for Osiris. He is a boy who is a space-faring boy with his family who comes to Earth from space. And I made him and his siblings, his sister and obviously his nemesis and the twin sister, which is in the original story, for children, but they were astronauts. And I felt like taking liberty in upgrading such an ancient story because I felt in this day and age we need to see ourselves in our art, and we are trying to be spacefaring, even if we don't know how to be. That's what we aspire to be. So I felt that it needed that upgrade, but I felt that it
That's
was more.
natural. That's not. I don't mean to cut you off, but you're already in tune, because the fact that just came to you is because we have a connection to the stars as well. There was a book written by a white doctor called The Immortal Cells of Henrietta Lacks. You ever heard of that?
I heard of it, but I've never read it. I've heard of it though.
In this book, because they like to make it seem like this is a specialized situation, as if you different. In this book, the lady is dead, but her cells are still alive. It's called the HeLa cell, HeLa, and it's still used in cancer research. She's dead, but her cells are still alive, used in cancer research. Her family been suing these people trying to get money for years. They said when we opened up her blood, they found the same material that they found in star matter. That's why the Egyptians, when they built the 3 pyramids, at the time they was built, they was perfectly aligned with Orion's belt. Because we have a connection with outer space, because because everybody talk about melanin. Melanin is not what it is. Melanin is a pigmentation of skin. Everybody got melanin.
Right.
The true root of what we have is carbon. Carbon is what makes us while we have the superconductor ability. Carbon is an element that's found outside of the planet. Carbon makes what? A diamond. So we are carbon beings. That's why in the movie, and carbon is a black oily substance. That's why the movie Spider-Man 3, they call it the symbiote. This black ooze from outer space came to Spider-Man and not only made him stronger, but it gave him a swagger. They show you all the time who you are. We just got to decode it and stop looking at it from the eyes of just black people and realize you're dealing with high science and people that study so many different trains of thoughts to bring to you these concepts. But I digress.
No, I definitely appreciate it. And listen, I have so much to research. There's a phrase that I've been pondering on for the last 6 years in the Quran, in reference to that. And I know there's a connection. I just haven't. The answer hasn't hit me yet. But I know.
Which line? We said our God is the Lord of Sirius.
Not that one, but that one is one that needs me. That's I got a pin in that one. The one that I've been talking about is the black mud altar. Now, as many people have stated that translation literally just meant just mud. Something tells me that we're not talking about mud and we're not talking about color either. But somehow that description matches better. However, you know how in the ancient world, like right now, when we say words, they actually have full sentence meanings, but we don't see it that way. It's this way too. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, according to what we know from at least that perspective, the first man didn't have parentage, but he grew into a man. Where did he grow at? He grew from a substance, not from sperm, not from whatever. He grew from a substance. And this substance is a substance that obviously can but can be the foundation of a human being in a way that if you touch it right, it'll change form. And so when we say black mud altar, the word black, like you said, doesn't mean a lot to us. Mud, obviously, we associated with just elements that we really don't care about. And then altar, we really don't even understand why you're using the term, like the phraseology of altar in a.
Sound like you're talking about carbon to me.
This is what I'm saying, and I'm saying that I have to justify that obviously within the broader context of that narrative. However,
think about it. When the Muslims go to Mecca to make pilgrimage, they walk around what? A black box.
Listen, you can't tell certain people nothing, but that's why I stopped, because I said, you know what, if y'all don't want to accept me even questioning why you're walking around with the black box and touching that black stone and kissing that black stone, and everything is about throwing black rocks and some black, and it's just black, and like y'all, like you don't even want to talk about why you're doing it. What's the okay? I get it. You're scared. I get it, but this is something that you got to be careful because of that community. But I have been pondering that for a few years now.
I
And
mean, I love Islam. I took my shahada. I mean, I'm technically Muslim, but I have a whole different outlook on it. Because at the end of the day, Islam means peace. In the
right.
Quran, it says remembrance is more important than prayer. See, our people are so dogmatic that they don't understand that these trains of thoughts Islam and certain trains of thoughts came to bring you to a higher state of consciousness when you just know and just be. Because I know people who think the ritual is important.
Correct.
If remembrance is more than prayer, that means you ever notice the most religious people is the ones that's doing the most?
Yeah.
Because they feel like by doing the act, by going to the service, by wearing the garb, that's cool.
Right.
Or you could just be the person. Most people who changed the world, the people they talk about, from Jesus to Buddha, what was their religion? They were the religion.
Right.
You
And you
have
know
to
what?
be it.
Right. You have to be that. And that's where I think the ideological conundrum exists within the communities. And I want to include all of them, because that statement doesn't just apply in Islam. It applies in all religions, honestly. However, when we say, well, remember versus do a bunch of rituals, where these are two separate ideas, and they've been erroneously convoluted. And so, but that's because of politics, a whole bunch of stuff.
And religion is politics.
Right.
Like, your religion is really here to protect you politically. That's the only purpose of it. Because when we was fighting when the Christians came at us, Islam was our political defense, because they said that God told them that that's our land. It's called manifest destiny. It's called the doctrine of discovery. It was the cross. It was through Jesus that they said they conquered. Yeah, so we said, nah, Allah said this is our land. So religion was always about the protection of political freedom. That's why if you look at the Democrat-Republican symbol, Democrat symbol is what? The mule.
Mule, yeah.
A mule is a hybrid animal.
Yeah.
The Republican Party is what? An elephant. The elephants are only found where indigenous people are.
Right.
So that's why Africa is a republic. You see how they got us going this way? Because we don't understand symbolism. One of the biggest massacres in America was a massacre of Democrats killing Black Republicans. So now we associate Republican with racist, and we associate Democrat with progression. But if you watch the symbols, you'll see what's what. Who is the hybrid of the planet? The donkey represents a hybrid mind. The elephant never forget. They said elephants never forget. When elephants die, they actually go to the grave site and remember. So everything is everything. You just gotta pay attention. Everything is everything. It's all in front of your face.
Hey, listen, I promise you, this time next year, I'm gonna have a better answer for some of these things I've been thinking about along with this. I'm gonna have a better, because I took some notes down, because everybody know me for having my pad, but right now I only got these little I'd be having big pads writing as people talking. But I by next year, I'm gonna have more under my repertoire than what I have now, just through this conversation. So I'm infinitely grateful to you for blessing me with that, and for your time. I know it's past it, but I'm not gonna hold you. I actually have to run too in a couple minutes, but I just want to just take the time to say I appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate your intellect too on more mundane conversations online too. I mean, I know at some point we need that, but I do appreciate having that intellectual balance there. I just appreciate that, because obviously without that, I would probably unsubscribe to YouTube, because I'm getting bored with it. I would, but I appreciate you just in general as a person and just what you bring to the conversation. And I thank you for coming through tonight. I know
Yeah, no
we
problem.
busy week, but infinitely grateful. I did not get a chance to salute too many people in the chat. Now y'all know I'm still new to this, so if you see me just saying stuff, if I forgot you in the chat, please forgive me, okay? Do as Jesus said, okay? Forgive me. I will definitely catch up with everyone that tuned in and whatnot. If you left a comment and whatnot, but I listen. If you want to take us away, you can do that, and I think that will be the close of tonight because we done covered a lot, and I'm still like, okay, I gotta go order that book on here, go find that. I know what this one is. Like, okay, gotta go get it now. Gotta go get my next check.
Yeah,
But
but I just appreciate you having me on. You know, I don't want to talk too much. Just, you know, just keep an open mind, everybody. You know what I'm saying? Don't take everything as face value, even when it comes from somebody that looks like you. That's why I like to provide people with books. So people could say this and say that, but it's like, how can you hold them accountable for what they said if they have nothing to stand on it? You know, a lot of people say, well, white man wrote the books, and I get it. But, you know, you have to read and you have to cross-reference. If you see something in one book, go read another one, and see what sticks, see what doesn't. But just open your mind and just know that it's just time to look at things from new eyes. The way we're doing things, it just reached its zenith. It's time to change. It's time to grow to a whole new way. And it's really an old way, but it's a new way. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate you for having me on the platform.
thank you so much, and we'll definitely catch up just on information. And as you see, my channel is very small right now, and I'm trying to organically grow it. So
I understand. And my channel is small too. You know, I got a lot of followers on Instagram, but I haven't really started posting so much on YouTube. I be on other people's channel on YouTube, but
see, they be stealing you so much.
I mean, I be on other people's stuff, and that video went so viral. But I'm glad that you didn't even find me off of that, because so many people didn't even know. They know me from that video, but some people are seeing me from, you know, being on panels. So it's like I got two different type of audiences coming. I'm gonna be me regardless, but some people come from the viral video, some people come from it because they saw me on Cruise Season or Lapeef or something like that. But you know, I am who I am regardless of where I'm at.
Listen, I like I said, I appreciate you coming out tonight. I don't even think I need to close out this segment on my own show. I think you said it best. But I think that's where I'm just gonna leave it there because it's been just an honor to have you here and speaking. And I'm not gonna hold you because I know you probably got a bunch of stuff to do. But thank you again for coming through. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the invite.
Thank you. Okay, well, if you want, I'm gonna just say my last goodbyes to everybody, play my little video, and hope this closes down correctly if I hit this right button. But I do have to learn what you said about putting a little tag in there. I seen it, but I'm gonna get this right. I'm gonna get it right.
It's all good. It's all good.
My 50th video, but I'm gonna get it right. All right, everybody. So thank you for tuning in. Lots of information for you guys to look up. Please do not watch this segment and then let us find out you referenced this video and you have not read some of these books. Like, don't do that. Like, because that's going to be embarrassing. And going forward, we will be holding you accountable for that. Okay, like we will. I will pull you back up, especially if I know you. Okay, and be like, why are you saying that? And you read that book? Like, but we will call it a night. Definitely like, share, subscribe, and react, and just understand here we fly high. So good night, everybody. I appreciate you, and good night, Illasophical.
No doubt.
Bye. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for tuning in, and good night.